What is it that gets you up? What is it that motivates you on a daily basis or gets you most excited?
It's not just the what, it's the how. It's not just the numbers, the performance, it's the how of it. Our commitment to doing things with a clear conscience, transparency, owning the moment, providing an awesome experience in every interaction, whether that be externally or internally. Basically our vision states, and now I'm going to screw it up as we're sitting here, like, how do you not know your vision? But basically it goes a little like this. We are tenaciously persistent in protecting our family culture and providing an awesome experience in every single interaction. By hiring, training, and retaining rock stars, this Aero family will grow opportunities for generations to come, and we will do it all with a clear conscience. That's what gets me rolling.
Nailed it. You nailed it.
That's what gets me rolling.
And what will clearly be the most high energy boardroom buzz in history. We're here with Arrow Exterminators. Emily and Tim, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The most high energy, man.
This is good.
You really want us to bring it today.
I want you to, because you're the right person for it, Emily. I felt like this is the right way to do it. Patrick, why don't you get our party started today?
Oh my goodness. Thank y'all for joining us here or welcoming us into Atlanta. It's a pleasure meeting both of y'all today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
So everyone knows Arrow Exterminators. Take us back. Give us some history.
Yeah. My grandparents, Mimi and PawPaw, otherwise known to the world as Imogene and Starkey Thomas. We like to say we're 57 years young because we really believe we're just getting started. But they founded the company 1964 here in Atlanta and basically founded it out of the back of a hair salon or a beauty parlor, as my grandmother called it. You say, well, Emily, is that really true? Well, not totally, but basically they were in their carport, for a couple of months. And my grandfather had worked for a large national company for, my God, most of his career. I mean, he started there when it was 1938 and worked there till 1964. And he and my grandmother decided they wanted to create something that was a little different. They wanted just a very strong family culture, not just like, hey, we're related, although there's that too, but also we spend a lot of time at work, so we got to make it fun, right? So my grandmother, if you see pictures of her, I mean, I don't remember her ever without this big white beehive. Big white beehive. She'd go to the beauty parlor once a week. And I'm sure some of us still have grandmothers who go to the beauty parlor once a week.
Right.
And so she's sitting in there, and the man who owned it, she's like, hey, we just opened a pest control company, and I need my carport back for my caddy, and I see you've got an office in back. And the guy's like, well, I mean, okay. It was like a big cleaning closet kind of deal. But he's like, yeah, definitely it's an office. And she's like, we want to rent it. So they struck up a deal, and if you can just imagine these guys carrying milk jugs coming in and out of there, mixing up, I mean, really, who knows what and back. I mean, it was 1964.
Right.
And then all these like ant bees, hooked up to things from the ceiling, and there's foil, and there's all sorts of stuff going on. I mean, I wish I had pictures of this because only a pest control company could start that way.
But why pest? Like, how do they get to there? I mean, your grandmother said, hey, I'm going to kill bugs. What?
So it goes to my grandfather. I called him PawPaw. So what my dad tells me is that my grandfather, he was working in sales for another type business. And it was okay. He wasn't super enjoying it. And they had a family friend who said, hey, I'm working at Orkin, okay? And they've got an opening. You might want to come down and, check it out. And my grandfather was a salesman. I mean, he could sell ice to an Eskimo. He loved people. And that's how he started, like I said, in 1938. When he got to this particular company, it was actually Rollins. It was doing, I think it was doing about 20 million with 20 offices ish. Okay. And Otto Orkin was coming in and out of there. When he left in 1964, it was doing over 200 million with over 200 offices. And so he got to watch this whole progression as they went from here all the way to here and then took off from there. And he started in sales, did very, very well, which is no surprise to us. And then he became the termite manager for Atlanta. And he would go out, talk to builders, sell pre-treats, and then they would cross-sell other services off of that. And I mean, my grandparents, they came from nothing, both of them. And, but they were people. Right. They loved people, and they had big, explosive personalities. Okay. You knew when they were in the room, and they fell in love with the industry.
Has not fallen far from the tree.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay. So they started this business. They're running something in the back of a beauty parlor. And so your father, he gets involved when?
So my dad graduated from the University of Tennessee, and in 1972, he started the next week at Aero.
Okay.
And I think when he started, he said they were doing about $350,000 in revenue. And it's the only business he knew growing up because he would work there in the summers. And, they had a lot of relatives that worked at the company. And so, family events were like company events as well. And so it was kind of a no-brainer for him. And he got to work very closely with my grandfather from 72 to 78, when the company went from 350 to 850. And that's when my grandfather passed. So he had a bad ticker. And I know my dad really treasures those years. He got to work directly with him.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
But my dad, took it and kind of ran with it from there.
So your dad went to Tennessee, but if I remember right, you chose another school in Tennessee.
I did. My whole family went to University of Tennessee in Knoxville. And my sister and I ended up going to school in Nashville, Tennessee, to Vanderbilt University.
Yeah. How'd the family take that one?
My dad, in his way, which is somewhat subtle, but was kind of obvious, took me up to Vanderbilt. We went on a tour, and everything went well. It was beautiful. It was a great school. And he goes, okay, now we're going to go to Knoxville for a long weekend, and I'm going to show you what fun is. And we went over there. We went to Calhoun's on the River. We got to see the Tennessee Marching Band. We went to a University of Tennessee football game, and he's like, look at this. You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm like, it's just so big. And I was raised on Tennessee football, so I bleed orange. And I'm like, it's so big and it's so orange,
You could have gone to any other school, right?
Yeah. Oh, they would have loved it if I got to Tennessee. I probably would have had more fun.
But following in his steps, was it straight from college? Or did you find yourself in the family business?
So I didn't think I would go into the family business. My dad, again, in his subtle way, always told me that I would do well in it. He said, you love people, you're good with people, and you don't get that it's not about the bugs. Yes, that's what we do, but it's a people business, And he said, you're always welcome in it, would love to have you, but if you choose something else, that's okay, So I'm all, I want to go to law school. And my dad, I look back and I'm like, dude, he was cringing.
Yeah.
So he got me an internship with our attorney, and that kind of cured that. I was an anthropology major, cultural anthropology, which liberal arts degrees. I would go back and change that today. But a year before I graduated, he said, what are you thinking about doing? I said, hey, you remember how you were talking about the company? I would love to kind of check that out and, see what it's all about. And I'm thinking, I'm not going to be in the bug business. I'm still thinking I'm not going to be in the bug business. But I got into it, and over time, over the first couple of years, I really fell in love with it. I loved the people. I had this like cum laude degree, but these people, man, they ran circles around me, and it was humbling. And I loved what they were doing, and I loved solving problems. So don't get a liberal arts degree.
Indeed. So what was your first job there?
Okay, so oh God, I'll never forget this. So day one at Aero, my dad, he's like, you're gonna go out in the field today, okay? And so wear shorts and a polo shirt, and bring a backpack, put your lunch in it and stuff. So I'm all got it, and like back in those days, they didn't have women's Aero shirts. I mean, they were just these big boxes. So I walked into the Dunwoody, Georgia office. My dad walks me in there. I look back at this and I just cringe. And one of our a guy who's a senior vice president today in operations, he was in sales at the time. And he walks by and he goes, and I'm thinking to myself, I want to run.
Yeah.
This was a mistake. What? And is he going to stop and say hello? No, he just keeps walking, right? And so I spent a couple.
So you were like hazed.
I'm like, what have I gotten myself into? But learned kind of the basics of what we do by being in the field for a couple of weeks, and then they put me in an office. I was in an administrative role. And I'll never forget, I sit down at this desk, and this lady, actually one of our managers, it was his mother, was like, I'm going to teach you everything, okay? There's a computer on the desk, and she's showing me all this stuff with pens and ledger cards, like writing pen. And I go, okay, I'm getting in, I'm taking notes. I go, what do we do with the computer? And it wasn't on. Okay. And she goes, oh, they put that on our desk a year ago. Your dad is never going to do computers. So, and at the time, this was 1998. Yep. We were doing about $38 million in revenue. So still, all paper, ledger cards,
Wow. 38 million, like the old school file card systems.
Oh yeah. Ledger. And even when we did go to our first computer system, I mean, one day, they came in and were like, we're going to go to this. It was still a system that, let's say at the time we had like 50 offices that had 50 different databases.
Yes.
50 different databases, and the sales guys would still come in, and because I would do the ledger cards as well, because I'm like, I got used to this, I feel it, and they can feel it, and but yeah, it was different, and I didn't know any better. I mean, I really didn't, but I do remember thinking to myself, Dad wants to keep growing this business, and he's really good at it, okay, and the team's really good at it, but like, I feel like we need some little more structure, I
mean, when you joined the business in the 90s, what was the C-suite like? What was the organization looking like? You had your father at the helm. And then what else did you have there? Do you have?
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, back then, everybody was still wearing, at least at Aero, suits. Kind of in that area of the building. It
was pretty fashionable in Atlanta here.
Yeah, and my dad,
pest control companies.
Listen, my dad is a great dresser. My uncle always calls him James Bond. I mean, he's a great dresser. And so everybody else, kind of dressed the same way. He had two right-hand guys in the business, gentleman named Fred Sherman and another gentleman named Ray Krim. And then they had a team, and they would have an operations meeting that they called an operations meeting every Monday. And, it was a real focus on growing the business. And they had started doing acquisitions about 10 years before that. And It was just very, very high growth. And like I said, part of what I identified from the get-go and actually ended up being pretty good at was building infrastructure. And that's something my dad was very open to. I mean, it didn't happen like immediately. Like I'm talking over time, you know, but he got it. And he was different. I mean, it feels like yesterday, but it was 22 years ago. You should ask Tim that question. He was calling on Aero with Dow.
Yeah. Aero was one of my customers. I was with the Dow Chemical Company, and so I watched a lot of that happen.
Was that right?
No, I was in Atlanta.
Okay.
But I was all over the place. But at some point in the Atlanta market and working with them, kind of watching all this happen from the outside.
What did it look like from the outside?
It was different. I remember, when they made the decision to consolidate software. I really remember that because that was a big deal. But such a growth mechanism too, because then you've got access to all the information in a central place, right, to be able to make those decisions. And then of course some of the termite selections and some of those things really had a big impact as well. That Aero really got behind because during those days too, you had a lot of termite issues, right? I mean, especially late '90s, early 2000s. I mean, there weren't a lot of great products that were, doing a really great job with termite. I mean, they were doing okay, but, there were a lot of issues with termite. And so that's when, Centricon came out, and then not long after Termidor was coming out, and, Aero really jumped on Centricon.
Approximately what year did Centricon come out?
Well, that was in the mid 90s, like 95-ish. So, just right before Emily came in, and that's what I was doing. So I was working and doing that with Dow.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Aero the largest single Centricon user in the world?
Yeah,
right?
That's correct.
Booyah!
Yeah, I mean, you guys are doing hundreds of millions a year in Centricon.
Yeah, we do a lot with Centricon, and it's been really good,
I love how understated Tim is. We do a lot.
So you sold
Some
them
and then
Centricon?
Yeah.
Like when you were with Dow.
Yeah.
How hard of a sale was that to get them to start doing this? Like that was a new technology.
It was totally new, right? So, you go out and kind of prove it. You do a couple of test sites, right, and get it. And then, of course, Aero at that time, was a large enough organization that you had some that were on board with it and some that weren't. So, you had all the internal struggles that went on. And, there were moments too that Chief wasn't sure whether or not he wanted to do that or not either, because that was a totally different model.
He's like,
about
wait a
the way to
second.
go to business.
Wait a second. I take part of the renewal fee
Right.
and I give that to them?
Yeah, that was a big deal.
It's like, why would I do that? I would have loved to have listened to those conversations.
Yeah, that was a big deal. But when it started solving problems that they couldn't solve other ways, and of course, they're in line, damage claims start to go away, and, it starts to become pretty positive.
Scheduling off the ledger cards then in the mid 90s, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how you schedule without a computer system back then.
We did.
Like quarterly and with some monthly?
Well, for Centricon at the time, like when I came in a few years ago in '98, you would install the system, and if there's an active infestation, you would check it. Gulp! It like makes me hot to even think about it. You would check it monthly, like 12 times a year. Okay, and if it was preventive, it was quarterly. That's better.
Yeah.
And today it's we go twice a year, but it's the label reads one time a year.
Yeah. It's interesting. Why? I know we're kind of stuck on Centricon here for a second, but why choosing to go twice a year?
Well, the technology changed, and now there's
like today. Why are you twice a year?
When
today,
you could go once a year.
when we could go once.
Yeah.
Fair question.
Yeah, so we do have someone that goes out and checks the stations, right, and makes sure everything's in good shape. Then we also have somebody go out and monitor the house and do an evaluation of the house.
Do a
as well.
full renewal inspection.
Full renewal inspection.
Okay.
So we do 2 visits on each one.
We like to have, because we were going from quarterly to once a year, and we're like, that's. We like having a little more contact with our customers. And it's worked out well. Wait, y'all want to hear a funny story?
I love funny
Absolutely.
stories.
Okay, so it kind of goes to Centricon, right? So do you remember the first time we ever met? Because I'm going to tell you the whole colorful story. I'm in Nashville. I'm a senior. I'm a senior at Vanderbilt. It's the spring of '98. And I'm like, I run downstairs. I'm about to run out to a class. And I'm like, what's happening in the kitchen? Termites are swarming everywhere.
Okay.
I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to melt. What's happening? So we had an office in Nashville. I call the office. And this lady, Vera, she's like, hey, Sugar Booger, we can't get anybody out there for 3 weeks. And I'm like, you don't understand. They're everywhere. I don't know. They're going to eat the kitchen, And she's like, we can put you on the schedule in 3 weeks.
Yep.
And so then I'm like, I play the dad card. I call dad and he goes, just wait a little bit. So like 30 minutes later, 3 guys in suits, full suits, show up at my door. And it was Ray Krim, who was with Aero. It was Jeff Singley, who used to be our chief operating officer, who passed away in 2012, and Tim Pollard, who was with Dow at the time, and he was in Nashville with Jeff and Ray to talk about Centricon, look at stuff, et cetera, et cetera. I had, in the meantime, before they got there, I don't know, I got like cleaning solution or something, and I sprayed that kitchen down. I mean, it was everywhere, like lakes on the floor kind of thing, right? And Jeff and Ray go outside to do an inspection, and Tim was so sweet. He's like, here, why don't we get this cleaned up? We don't want you to slip and fall. And I'm like freaking out about termites, and he's like, these are the swarmers. It's not a big
And
deal.
I'm thinking, who is this?
I'm wondering.
Joe's daughter.
I look back, I'm
okay.
so embarrassed. I am so embarrassed because I didn't know Boo. I mean, I really didn't know Boo about the business other than the people side somewhat, because I'd grown up in the business. I'd gone on company trips and to association meetings and stuff. But that's how Timbo and I met.
I'd heard that everyone's always like, Emily's such a great woman. Like, she's really cool. But you hear that story about her back in '98. So I've heard this. I've heard this often.
Yeah.
There are probably hundreds of stories that I don't remember and don't want to remember.
What's Tim's side of that story?
Yeah. So Tim, you're out there.
Similar, yeah.
You're out there with Dow. You're selling
embarrassing.
Centricon, probably amongst other things. Or did you focus on Centricon?
Yeah, mainly Centricon. We had Dursband too,
Okay.
transitioning. We were cannibalizing the market,
Yep.
our own market there, because we saw the future, right? We saw that that's the way it was headed.
How'd you end up getting involved in Aero? I feel
Well,
like I
I mean-
know what's going to happen here, but tell me.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing was, I saw Aero obviously and got to know him pretty well. And I thought, man, he's really good people, right? I really liked the people, really liked the company. And I'd talked to Jeff Singley a few times about, perhaps maybe going to work for Aero at some point. But there were still a lot of things I wanted to do and a lot of things I needed to learn and all of that. So I, went up and to Indianapolis, did a lot of jobs there, and then ultimately ended up in Canada and was up in Canada running Canada.
Which was key for us. As soon as he went to Canada, Jeff Singley was like, Mama's going to hate it there. Mama is going to... Kathy,
Yeah,
his wife.
that whole minus 50.
He's like, I really think
kind
we
of
got
gets on you a
shot
little
with
bit,
him.
yeah. And so then, and it was going great. I mean, I enjoyed it. That was a great place to work. I loved it. But once you kind of get on that merry-go-round, then it's another one, right? So, oh well, maybe your next stop's going to be in Asia, or then maybe you need to go somewhere else, and all of that. And we got 3 kids, and the oldest at the time was getting ready to start middle school, and we said, you know what? Not sure we want to do that, so we're going to make a decision to get off. And so that's when I contacted Aero and said, hey, I'd like to come to Atlanta and set some roots. And gosh, that was 12 years ago. And it's been great. It's been wonderful to work with Emily and her dad and Aero and the whole team. The success that we've
Kevin
had.
Burns.
So, oh yeah, Kevin. Yeah.
Kevin Burns,
Yeah.
this guy who's like not sitting right here this moment, but he's right over there.
Yeah.
Kevin!
I'm wondering. I just learned that there were termites in Canada.
No termites in Canada. Very few. I was mainly running
What were you
in the
doing up
ag.
there?
I was on the ag side of the business.
Okay.
Yeah, so moved
A
over.
little cold.
Yeah, a little cold.
Arctic termites.
Yeah.
Arctic termites.
All right. So I didn't know. Sorry, I totally messed up on the year.
No, it's okay.
I was like, my math was off today. I remember it's been 57 years. 1964. Fast forward. So you're coming into the business, right? But alongside you have counterpart, and there's one that Pat you just mentioned, right? Down. Remind me his name. Sorry.
Oh, Jeff Singley.
Jeff Singley. Okay, so
He was great.
Yeah.
that's what I heard. So you have Jeff Singley, right? And so typically how does the role balance out, right? Jeff, was he president?
So Jeff, at the time of his passing, was chief operating officer.
Okay.
And that was in 2012 when he passed. Very tragic.
March of 12, I think.
March
right? It was
23rd,
early. Yeah, it was early.
2012. He had a congenital heart issue that he didn't know about. It was devastating and so very sudden. What's interesting about it is that literally the night before, and Kevin Burns was there. We were actually in Colorado skiing, and I'm still thinking of Jeff skiing. It was so funny. He was a South Georgia boy. Anyway, and Jeff and I talked to Kevin and some of our other executives who were there and said, hey, we are going to promote Tim to chief operating officer, and I was promoting Jeff to president. That is literally the evening before Jeff passed.
Yeah.
And like I said, his passing was so sudden and so tragic. And I mean, I just don't have the words. It's still exactly what we did. And all of us, Tim, myself, Kevin Burns, my dad, all of us were not only close colleagues and teammates of Jeff's, but he was like a brother to me. I mean, he was like a son to my dad. He was, Kevin and Tim's best friend. I mean, it was just devastating. And basically, we all just banded together and just buried ourselves in the work and put one foot in front of the other. And I'll never forget. We literally just put our heads down and went to work. That's how we dealt with it. And I'll never forgetting sitting in the upstairs war room with these guys, and we had Jeff's cell phone, and the phone rang, and we're like, whoa. And I think Kevin, you held it and looked at it, and it was Jeff's father calling. I think to hear his voice on the voicemail, and we just started boohooing.
Yeah.
We just kind of put our heads down, and then we put our heads back up and kept moving. And so Tim was chief operating officer. Kevin, very shortly after, was named our chief development officer. And then we've got a whole, one of our other very close teammates is Shay Runyon. She's our chief HR officer and senior vice president of professional development. And then we have an amazing rest of our executive team. But basically how it went from there was Tim was COO. I was president and CEO. And we really kind of balance each other out really well. Very high energy. I'm very passionate. And I'm not saying Tim's not, because that's not true. Tim is very high energy. He's got a lot of endurance. He is much better with the details than I am. I mean, he just is. And he's better. I love operations. Mm-hmm. I would love to always be dealing with things that have to do with operations. It's my favorite part of the business. But what I'm going to tell you is Tim is much better at it. And for years, it killed me.
Yeah.
The guys are in his office, which is, just right by mine. And I'm like, what's going on? I mean, I just so wanted to be in the thick of it. And I just, and every once in a while I'd come by and be like, hey, I heard you say, I just love it. I really, really enjoy it. But I'm going to tell you, Tim is much better at it than I ever was. And what's really exciting is last summer, it's just last summer, right? Mm-hmm. Tim was named president. So he's president and chief operating officer and continues to do a fantastic job along with the rest of our team. They really function at I know everybody says this about their team, but I'm telling you, it's so an extremely high level. They're all smarter than me, which I'm totally cool with. That was the purpose, you know. You might have a different take on kind of how we.
Well, I'll just say it's Emily sells herself short a little bit, obviously, as you might imagine, because she's fantastic at everything she does and could do any of it, right? And she chooses to do certain parts of it, which is great because she has built a really good team of folks. I mean, we got 16 people, if you count us, on our executive team that all are overseeing departments or operations, and we work together extremely well. You know, most of the time I'm the first point of contact, but if I'm not there, I mean, Emily's right there, right? And so the communication is so critical and so key. And we talk about that a lot just as a company, but being able to have that communication between us, transparency, you know, just making sure we're all on the same page, headed in the same direction. And, you know, if there's something happening, don't assume somebody else knows. You know, we want to make sure, and it's been, obviously it's worked pretty well for us.
I like to say sometimes, I'm sorry, Paul, that, you know, I'll be talking to Tim and either I or he'll say, oh, I was thinking about this and I had this idea, and, you know, and I'm like, dude, that is like on my list here. I'm like, you should be frightened that you're thinking like me. But no, we work very well together.
Yeah.
Now, how big is Aero now? How many team members?
We have 2,736 ladies and gentlemen.
Wow. And how many states are you operating in now? Do you
11
even know?
states.
We're in 11 states,
Okay.
have offices in 11 states, and then we go into a 12th.
Wow.
So think the Southeast,
Yeah.
basically up to Virginia, and then jump on out to Texas and then Arizona.
I've known you guys now for a long time. You're one of the most genuine and genuous fam in the industry. My experience with Aero often is in the M&A realm. And some of the things that strike me as unique about what you guys do is I've never, ever heard of a bad Aero deal. Now, I'm sure they exist, and I'm sure there's been bad deals for you guys because it's impossible
Absolutely.
not to have it the other way around. But you guys, I mean, Emily, I know you go out to every one of these transactions, and you do as well, Tim, right? You guys go out, you meet the team members. It has been an important part of your growth, but you guys grow rapidly, organically. So what's your ultimate vision for this business? Now, your father is, you know, he's up in years. Sorry, Joe. But no, at the end of the day, like, you're the next generation coming in. What's your ultimate vision for this business? What do you intend to do with this?
I don't know. I'm kidding.
Come on, Emily. That's it.
No, we'll just see what happens.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
We're just winging it.
No, we, something that is very near and dear to our entire leadership team and to my dad and to our other owner, my uncle, is, you know, we've had this rapid growth, right? It took us 47 years to go from our founding to 100 million, 8 years or 7 years, I think, to go from there to 200 million. Our team just surpassed the $300 million milestone this past fiscal year. We just ended our fiscal year at the end of June, which it never crossed my mind at the beginning of this past fiscal year that they would do that. I mean, it took them 3 years. And from a size perspective, we think we'll be at 400 in the next 3 years, and then 500 million 3 years after that. And I think that's pretty conservative. And we always talk about it's easy, if you will. I mean, it's not the easiest thing, but it's semi-easy to grow revenue. And if you can grow revenue, you can create new jobs and you can create new opportunities for your folks, right? But to do that while staying true to our core commitments and to our culture, that is what, as far as we're concerned, is very hard and very difficult. I mean, if it were all about, you know, hey, we want to be a $500 million, or hey, we want to be $1 billion company, there are ways to get there a lot faster than we're going to get there, you know, but it's not what we want to do. You know, private equity is It's great for some folks. It's not really kind of how we roll, you know. We want business to also stay within the family. You know, we've done all the planning so that it can go to the third and fourth generation. And we always say we want to be a company where when people know the size of the business from a revenue perspective, they're amazed by how strong the culture is. Because it just, and in our experience, you see companies get bigger and bigger and bigger, and at times the culture really can go by the wayside. And the problem is, once that happens, I think it is almost beyond impossible to get it back. And for us, culture is, we think, our biggest competitive advantage.
Absolutely.
But talk to us a little bit about that, because we you know, in the industry or any industry, everyone talks about culture.
Sure.
But, I mean, how would you define Arrow's culture?
You know, I can talk about it all day long. And I mean, I really can talk to a wall about it all day. I mean, you're not a wall, but
I've been called worse. So I'll take wall. I'm happy with wall.
But Tim, I'd like to hear, he's going to use less words than I would use. But
well, you know, it's interesting because, you know, a lot of times people say, and kind of revert back to, well, it's like a family, right? Mm-hmm. And I know that's kind of cliche, but, you know, we actually even kind of asked our team one time to, hey, what does it mean to you? And what are some of the words? And, you know, put together like some word art with it and those kind of things. And of course, that's a big part of it. But a lot of it, you know, comes down to loyalty. A lot of it comes down to passion, comes down to transparency, caring, you know, things like that, to where it's a culture that's worth protecting. And that's kind of the phrase that we have kind of gravitated to and latched onto is, and we talk about all the time, hey, we've built something that's worth protecting. Let's make sure we protect it. And that's extremely important to us.
And how do you do that as executives? I mean, how do you reinforce these cultural values?
Yeah, it's in every decision you make, right? I mean, you have to think about that. It has to drive your decision. If it's not driving your decisions, then it's not real. It has to be real. Mm-hmm. And you have to think about, well, if we make this decision, what is the impact on our team? And then what does our team think about that? And then how does that impact our culture? And it has to become part of every decision you make, because if it's not real to us as an executive team, then it's not real at all.
And every initiative you do as well. I mean, you know, I've never worked or led a publicly traded company, right? And I have a feeling I'd be super bad at it. You know, we're lucky enough that we can look at the longer term. Mm-hmm. We don't have to say, oh man, you know, in a few weeks,
yeah, I get it,
gonna have to like put lipstick on this pig here for quarterly numbers. We're very lucky with that. And, you know, one of the strategies that we use to keep the family feel is my dad uses the words divide and conquer. Okay, so what does that mean? So I'll give you an example. In the city of or in the greater metro area of Atlanta, Georgia, we have about 35 offices. Okay. Now you go, well, wowzers, that's a lot of offices. Seems like you could have like 4 huge ones and make a lot more money.
Yep.
And we'd make a lot more money. But think about all the opportunities that having that many offices provides our folks. I mean, that's one of the things we like to tell people. If you ever wanted opportunity, okay, you're at the right company. Now, you don't have to take it. That's cool if you don't want to. But if you ever wanted opportunity, you're going to find it here. So what Dad did is over time in Atlanta is he'd get the main office. And I remember being a little girl and going over there, and it was all at one place up to a certain point. And I don't remember how big it was when he split it. Mm-hmm. But let's just for argument's sake, it was like $2 million. And then he took some of the revenue and opened up over in Tucker, Georgia. That was a second office. Mm-hmm. And people say, well, is there a specific number that once an office gets to X amount in revenue that you spin off? And the answer is no, because it depends on each market. You know, we also have some offices like our Roswell, Georgia office is over
4 million.
Over 4 million. Dude, it's got 2 zip codes. I don't think it can be split anymore.
Yeah.
So we got to protect that. And it's going to grow some, but it's not going to be that super high growth. It's going to have really strong pre-tax profit to help us fund, other growth areas of the business. But it just seems like once an office gets over 20 folks, it can get difficult. It really can get difficult to keep that camaraderie going. We've done it in some instances, but I think that's a big part of our culture.
It is. And creating those opportunities, that's huge, right? Because then when folks come in, a lot of times they come in because they're looking for opportunities. Maybe they just didn't have them at a previous place, or there wasn't that growth, and people desire that.
Well, I'm interested in that very topic. So how does Aero think about kind of the trajectory of a career path for like let's say you've got like there's a young person who's just gets into the industry. They might be a frontline employee, but there's a lot of promise there. So what's your internal process for identifying these promising people and propelling them, I guess?
Yeah.
How does that work?
It's a great question, and it's something we have to think about because we need leaders. That's what we got to have. We got to have people coming up into those positions. So, there's conversation that happens around all of those folks on a pretty routine basis, and we're looking for those high potential. And we'll say, okay, well, maybe they can take the next step. Maybe they can move up to be a home evaluator, which is an outside salesperson. Well, let's see how they do that. Let's give them an opportunity. Well, then maybe they can be a service manager. Let's give them that opportunity. We also created a training academy within our Aero University. We have our own training staff in Aero University where we bring people in now and basically just put them through like a 6-month manager training academy. So we're looking for that. And we've got examples of people that were in the industry that came to us that started out in sales or started out in service and now are either managers, or we have one in particular I'm thinking about who is a senior VP in
You're
our
thinking of
executive
Tommy.
team.
That's exactly who I was thinking
So
of.
we've got examples where those folks came in, and at Aero, hard work gets rewarded and results get rewarded. And that's not just something we say. I mean, it's reality. If you ask the folks there, they would tell you, yeah, that works.
In that divide and conquer mentality, right? I think that was the biggest thing when we had the interview with Shelby Hawkins, and Kevin Burns was on part of that interview. But the feedback I got from the listeners is like, that's a really different way of thinking about setting up the branches. Almost, and at least in my head, with this $2 million average, there's some threshold where you're planning on multiplying branches and having management where I think a good branch manager can manage 20 people and stay in touch, like, hey, how's your family doing? How are the kids and all that? Do you find that's the driving force that perpetuates the culture that y'all are from the executive level? Is it that small branch is really the secret to success?
I think it's definitely a part of it.
I think it's a key part of it.
Yeah, no doubt, because again, you're creating those opportunities for people, and they know, hey, there's going to be an opportunity for me here because it's going to continue to happen. And and then obviously we are substituting also and, adding to with mergers and, bringing those into, and that creates opportunities for people in those markets. So I think it's a big part of it. And the one thing that Joe or Chief always knew too is if you had one that was getting up to pretty good size, it's hard for it to continue to grow. And if you divide it out, they'll grow back larger than the first one. And so it was a way to just continue that growth as well.
On this whole topic of culture, one thing that popped in my mind, and I actually wondered about this, actually, I'm glad I'm sitting here with you, because on more than one occasion, here's a question that popped into my mind. Aero goes out and does a deal. Let's say you buy a business, there's 20 employees. Now, chances are the culture of that business is going to be very different than what you guys have established over the years. So how do you deal, we were talking about Shelby, right? And we're talking about the company up in Richmond. Great family businesses, great values, clearly a different culture. How do you, bring those folks into the family? How does that work?
Right off the bat, Tim, I think you'd agree with me, is that actually more often than not, they are similar to our culture. I mean, if you think about those two deals, one in Tucson and one in Richmond, they were family businesses. They had owners who absolutely adored their folks, thought they walked on water, treated them very well, and they had built good quality businesses. One of the things that I think we do really well that feeds into this culture piece is big word, just transparency. That's not to say they weren't transparent, okay?
Yep.
But we try really, really hard to, and we have kind of a rhythm down so that we can keep every single team member involved and up to date on how the company's doing, you know, where we are to goal for the fiscal year, how the quarter looks. I mean, I get something out every month, and during COVID, we started doing videos. And I mean, I think after a couple of months, because we were doing them like several times a week, I think they were like, woo, we don't need everything, you know, but we try and be extremely transparent. And every once in a while, I mean, sometimes you see that in an acquisition, but other times people say, well, oh, I didn't know how much revenue we did, or I didn't know what the pre-tax profit looked like, or, you know, things like that. I mean, I think transparency
I think
feeds
so.
into it.
I would add to it that obviously we're just very deliberate as well in the process.
It's a great
from
word.
day one, because Emily's there on day one. I'm there on day one. Of course, Kevin's been there and been involved. Our chief HR officer, our senior VP of operations, our region VP of operations. I mean, we bring everybody in on day one to start the onboarding process when we do this. And I think it just kind of sets the tone a little bit, really, to say, hey, you know what? We love you guys. We need you. We want you. We want you to be here. We want you to be part of it. Here's who we are. And Emily gives everybody her card before she leaves.
I was going to ask that question. You're known to give out your mobile number to all the new colleagues that come on board. Have you ever regretted that?
Okay, so that's a great question, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's kind of like, I'm putting this out here, what's going to happen? Never.
No.
I mean, every once in a while, I'll get a call or a text, and I tell them we have an open door policy. You know, I tell them that, hey, I think we got a really good thing going here, and we want you here. You are the business. Like, everybody's got a job. You're not interviewing for it, right? You are literally the business, okay? You know, I always give out my number. I'll never forget it was actually in, not Jacksonville, but the first deal we did close to Jacksonville. What's the name of the town?
Up in
Kevin.
Somebody from Offset?
McKendrick's.
Yeah, McKendrick's up in
Yulee. In Yulee,
Yeah,
Florida.
there you go.
Okay, family company, you know, great folks, good company. I get up to talk to these folks and understand. I mean, you guys have seen it. I mean, you walk into a room and most of the time, folks have just been told that the owner sold the company.
Yep.
They're terrified.
Yep.
I mean, they are so scared and shocked, and at times there's tears. So I always say right when I walk in, I'm like, super awkward. Let's just like get that out of the way, right? And I tell them, you know, what we're about, where we come from, where we're going, and then say, look, we want you here. You've got a job. You don't have to interview. And it's not for everybody. You know, we're a very high energy, growing company, and it's okay. If it's not for you, that's okay. But give us 6 months. Give us 6 months. And if it's not for you, you can reach out to me. I know a lot of people in the industry, and there are a lot of great companies out there. It's such a great industry we're in. So there's this girl at the back of the room in Yulee, Florida, Hendra. Okay, she's still with us. She's a service manager down in Jacksonville. And I'm looking at her, and she's just looking at me. I'm going, she ain't buying a thing I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, this is, you know. So afterwards, I'm like, what do you think, Kendra? And she goes, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I'll let you know, you know. And I'm on, oh, man. So, you know, I gave her my card. Like 6 months later, I get a voicemail. And it's from Hendra. And I'm going, I've never had this happen. I've literally never had this happen. And she said, Miss Emily, it's Hendra. Would you please call me? Gave me my number. And I'm going, oh, man, who do I know in that market, you know? thinking it's just not for her.
Yeah.
I mean, she had been with this small family company for 20 something years. Okay. Hey, Miss Emily, thank you so much for calling me back. I just wanted to let you know I'm going to stay. And I'm like, whoo!
Yeah.
And she's so great. She's wonderful. I get texts from her wishing me happy birthday and checking on me and everything, but she's great. But it's not for everybody too. And that's okay. But I mean, I've never regretted giving it out.
Yeah.
I mean, I just haven't. I mean, I'm sure these guys can dig up a crazy-eyed call from some point, but that's going to happen, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
In culture, I don't know if you avoided the term in defining it. Is family the first word that comes to mind, or is it something you choose to leave out?
Well, we're a family company, so yeah, we talk about it on a routine basis. I mean, we have folks in the company. We have, fourth generation now that's working for Aero. So, we love family, right?
Well, and not just like my family, okay? But I mean, we have third and fourth generations of different families, Aero families out there. And, people will be like, oh, do you allow families to work together? And we're like, yeah. I mean, we're believers in it because, you're either going to like each other or you're not, whether you're family or not. But, that's part of why we talk about family a lot,
Yeah. So when I was talking to Kevin a week ago, he was telling me when y'all do your presentations, at least on the executive level, it's family first, right? Like you're in there, you're not just presenting. Well, you might be presenting on something, but you're in there and you're giving an update on family.
Oh,
and
yeah.
vacations.
Absolutely, we do that.
That's a foreign concept to me.
Yeah, well, we started encouraging all of our folks to show us pictures of your family, what you've been doing over the last month, whatever, and just so we keep up with what's happening with each other, right? And know, and it's great, and that's something we all do. I mean, Emily will.
It was Tim's
share,
idea.
yeah,
it was a great idea. Just at the end of each of our slide decks, we put in like here's what we've been up to, outside of work, things like that. And it can be quite funny too.
Yeah. So we've encouraged that with all of our leadership teams. And from our executive team, we have what we call our corporate management team, which of course executive's part of. So you put all that together, it's about 51 people now from a leadership perspective. And then you add the entire Aero management team, which adds in 144 service center managers. So then obviously you're right at about 200 folks there, 199 from a leadership perspective for the 2000s.
I love how we, bam, 199.
Yeah. So,
I'd be like 200-ish, kind of like this,
Yeah.
I love that about you, Tim.
So it's just part of what we do, right? And that's, as Emily always says too, it's not always for everybody. But if you like it and you want to be part of it, then it's a lot of opportunity for you.
I can't imagine managing this multi-million. Congratulations on the $300 million. I didn't know that. That's impressive. I'm thinking 3 million, right? And I have, it'd be a dream, an aspiration to think I could grow my business to 300 million. Far, far, not even on the radar. What's it like running a business that large compared to running like a $3 million business? What does that look like?
Well, obviously, there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of people. And what makes it go are the people. Just like what makes it go in your $3 million business, same thing that makes it go in a $300 million business. I mean, it's all about people. And Emily and I, a lot of times, will look at each other after we've been out with our team and we say, man, we got great people. And we really do. And that's the success of it. It's all about people make things happen. And getting the right people in the right seat, giving them opportunities, challenging. I mean, there's times we've challenged ourselves to go, ooh, okay, now this person, are we sure we want to make them a manager? Like, how do we feel about this here? Well, they've been very successful in certain areas, but how are they going to fit? And of course, we have some tools to help us with that and some things that we'll utilize. But sometimes you got to be willing to take a chance too, right? And it's it's all calculated, and you run things to make it go. And then what we usually find is people will usually surprise you as to what they're capable of. Because
more often than not.
Oh,
sure.
more often than not, maybe they don't believe it. They're not sure they can do it. And then when they get in there, they really can. And then those folks just continue to grow.
But I will tell you, I mean, there are times that all of us look at each other and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe we have 144 offices. Or like, we're just about to have our big kickoff meeting, right? And one of the things we're going to share is in this fiscal year, we're projecting to open 15 new offices, 10 from spinoffs, and we've already opened 4 on July 1st, and then 5 from M&A. And we go, oh my God, can you believe we're going to be at this many offices? And then you look at over the last 5 years. In 2016, we had 1,667 folks, and then today we have 2,736. And we go, whoa, I can't believe that. It's all relativity though, because the same things that you're dealing with in a $3 million plus operation, all 144 of our offices, of those leaders, are dealing with the same things.
Like the texture of the toilet paper. Is it too thin? Is it too...
Yeah. Hey, after COVID, we're just happy to have toilet paper.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like 2 plies of luxury.
We're going to need some pest control in this place.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Leave a card.
This home is clearly not an Aero customer.
No. What's a normal day in the life look like for the two of you? I mean, what do you spend your time doing? Just give us an average day. Not an exciting one, not a boring one. What's an average one?
Yeah, for me, it's usually Emily and I always talk, every day, multiple times a day, whether we're in the office or not, just talking about what we're doing, what's upcoming, what's happening, those kind of things. And then usually then talking to our executive members as to what's happening, what are some things that are happening. Personnel, obviously, is a huge part of our day. Mm-hmm. So from an operations perspective, support perspective, HR, all of those things.
But, talking about, what a day looks like, our offices are right by each other. And so we'll yell things back and forth. And I told you we've got a pretty strong, consistent rhythm at the company.
Yeah.
Okay. We've got our executive team members or executive meetings every month. We've got our corporate management team meetings every quarter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're inevitably prepping for something coming up. Right now we're in the final stretch. Most of the work's already done for our big kickoff meeting next Monday down in Midtown here in Atlanta. We'll have over 400 folks there. 2 weeks later, we'll be up in Washington, D.C. with Kevin. How many?
600.
That's the damnedest thing. With 600 of our folks. So what that's going to be is like 300 of our rock stars, and then they can bring a guest. So spouse, partner, significant other, friend, child, etc. And it's an incentive trip from that comes from the 2020-2021 fiscal year. And it's not just like, hey, we're going to DC, have a blast. No. We want to make it a memorable experience. Honestly, I want spouses and significant others to be like, hey, yo,
this better be a recurring event.
Yeah. So we always tell them, like, we had one in the Bahamas, and we'll tell them where the next one is. And
you just did that a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
That's right.
We did it. That was for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. It got pushed off over and over. But I want all of us to have a little bit of pressure of, somebody, hey, where are you to go? We send postcards to their home.
We do.
We do.
They're very effective.
They are very effective.
Yeah. Postcards to their home. Like when you guys go on this trip, you send postcards to the whole employee.
Well, throughout the year,
every quarter,
reminding them about the trip and are you on track?
A pretty picture. And
yeah,
it's pretty effective. And we'll have spouses be like, "Well, I don't know about him, but I'm going to be there."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh man, this poor guy. Every night she's asking him, did he meet his daily budget? Oh, geez, man, I feel bad about that."
Got a divorce attorney that puts up a shingle right out front of your office, waiting for those postcards to go out.
No, but we've done that for years. But anyway, we're inevitably, getting ready for some event that's coming up. And
You do a lot of events. I mean,
We
I
do.
feel like you guys do more events than a lot of the other companies out there. The companies of your size are
Yeah,
bigger.
we do. We
Because every time I turn around, you're in the Bahamas.
and again, that kind of goes back to the whole culture thing too, right? And what we want to do and what we want to offer to our team, and have them to have the ability to go places that maybe they just wouldn't normally go on their own. And we've literally had them say that to us, like, hey, one of the things I love about all the incentive trips and everything that Aero does is they usually choose somewhere that I haven't been or somewhere that I would love to go. And it makes it pretty special for them.
So if I join Aero, like I work for Aero starting
you're not
tomorrow.
eligible for hire.
I know.
No.
I'm entirely unemployable. But I work for Aero. I begin to, so how do I qualify? How do I go on these trips?
Well, it depends on your role, right? If you're in a sales role, then you've got a sales goal that you need to meet.
Let's say Patrick's in outside sales. He's outside. I can feel it. I'd buy anything from you.
Well, thanks.
And Paul, let's say Paul's
Should
in.
buy nothing from me.
I would buy nothing. No, he's you're either a service professional or an inside sales specialist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of divided up that way.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously they have different goals depending on where they're located, right? And then they have to achieve those goals. So his is going to be a lot more, right? If that's what he's doing outside. But then our service folks, as well as our inside sales folks, they also have certain goals that they need to meet.
But what sort of goals? Like I need. You can't just tell me, hey, Paul, you got some goals. Like
Oh, yeah.
I want to
they're
know
very
how
specific.
I'm a service guy. How am I going?
Yeah,
What do
they're
I
very
need to do?
specific.
That's
and
what I want to know.
It's going to be based on obviously providing service to your customers and then reaching sales goals as well. So everybody has everybody at Aero basically has a sales target.
Okay.
So, and that's something that we set out to meet.
We're a very sales oriented company. Some people will say, well, that company's more, it's more of a marketing company.
Yep.
Right. Hey, we've got great marketing. Our marketing team is phenomenal, but it supports the overall sales efforts.
So all of your technicians are out there selling.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Uh,
Now,
It's set up so that
set
all
up
of
that
your
way, right?
technicians
Yeah.
could be out there selling.
so we're both service professionals, right? Tim is probably going to sell a lot more than me because he's great in sales. I am not that good, right? And maybe I'll sell one new customer a month. That's fine. That's great. In each office you'll have several folks who that's their thing, and other folks who are like, I just want to go service my customers and take good care of them, and that's cool too,
Well, earlier you teased out a 12th state. I heard 11 states, 144 centers. It sounds like you're about to be in 12th state.
Well, we service 12 states. We just don't have an office in the states. So
We dip into Louisiana.
Yeah.
So we're based in 11 states, operate in 12.
So what is are y'all looking to expand that footprint, get into more states?
Absolutely.
We're always open to new
Yeah,
states.
we're always looking for more.
Virginia, Richmond, that was a new state for us. We've been wanting to get into Virginia for a long time.
yeah.
But do we want to go into Manhattan or California? I mean, listen, never say never. But there are a lot of places before that we'd be pretty pumped about.
Well, how do you make those decisions though? When you think about it, so you're a Southeastern-based business. You go as far west now as Arizona. What's the difference? If you're in Arizona, why not be in Montana or Seattle? Or I guess, how do you make these decisions?
Have you been to Montana?
No.
Lovely
I'd
place.
love to go
It's
there.
absolutely gorgeous. Like Wyoming, we were talking about Wyoming. Wyoming's amazing. My husband's from Wyoming. I would love to have an office in Wyoming, but I'm just thinking that's not going to happen.
Population
Yeah.
6,000.
It's just not like
I would
there.
love for you to watch my dad's face as I tried to sell that.
Yeah.
But like for example, we'd love to be in the state of Colorado, especially on that front range, close to Denver. There's a lot of high growth there. I'd especially love to be there on the commercial side and, kind of connect up to Arizona. We looked at a company a long time ago in Washington State and Oregon, great business. We didn't get that company. But several things go into thinking about it. We were talking about one recently when we were comparing Florida to this other state. More like,
And there's still lots of opportunity where we're at. I mean,
oh yeah,
we've still got a lot of growth opportunity, but for us, we like the way the Midwest looks a lot. I mean, there's a lot of great markets in the Midwest, and then the kind of the Mid-Atlantic. Those are two I would say priorities for us for sure. But then the states that we're in, and some of those states, there's still a lot of opportunity in those markets for us. And I think one of the things that we're really good at is growing. Once we get into those markets, I think we're really good at growing from there and then continuing to add to it organically as well as through M&A.
And you guys are in North Carolina as well?
Yes.
But you're not that, you don't have a really big footprint there, do you? It's a relatively new state for you. I don't remember.
yeah. We do about $7 million in revenue there.
Okay.
And Charlotte, Lake Norman, Winston, Raleigh, Rocky Mount. Am I missing one?
No, that's So I mean, we're starting to cover across the state and more, and it's definitely a growth area for sure. That state
There's
as well
a
as
ton of
south.
opportunity there.
The majority of your growth is organic. I understand that. But do you typically use acquisitions to enter new markets, or do you use them to fill in route density, or both?
Both. Wouldn't you say more often than not we're getting into a new market?
Yeah, I mean, we like new markets.
And we love new markets because, like Tim said, I think we're really, really good at growing once we're there. But we'll also use it to, shore up some business where we already are. But more often than not, I think we get in new markets. But we're looking for both.
Yeah.
Hey, if only you were an M&A broker. I mean,
Yeah.
that'd be craziness.
Well, I love to make Kevin Burns pay, so.
If you're looking apples to apples, if you're looking at acquisition in the same market, does it benefit you if they already do Centricon, or if they're not? Is that the opportunity? Like Shelby's business, right? It's been a liquid business. You're like, hey, we can sell them all Centricon. How do you look at that?
Great thought.
Well, it's a good point, and obviously you went right to the heart of it, right? So there's opportunity there if they're not doing Centricon for us from a conversion standpoint. But if they're doing Centricon, that's fine too. I mean, there's plenty of other areas and ways to grow the business.
If someone's selling, right, the acquirer, y'all can come in and be like, hey, look at all these opportunities we have, right? Look at the culture, right? At the end of the day, hey, they want to know, are we going to be taken care of? What are our benefits? What's our compensation going to be like?
Sure.
But you can also come in and say, hey, you can also start doing Centricon. I mean, what other opportunities are there for them to sell more?
Yeah, well, depending on where it's at and what they're doing, right? It could be lawn care, could be mosquito control, could be Centricon, could be maybe a different type of pest service in some areas, maybe a specialty like a carpenter bee or, something like that. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things that we might get into that maybe they just didn't focus as much on because, maybe they were at a certain point and they were very comfortable there and they didn't really, aggressively go after it. And sometimes it's a lot of that is more of, hey, there's just opportunities here that with a little bit of focus and looking at those opportunities, you can really go after it and grow it.
Well, what are the boundaries? Like, do you let a branch go do crawl space encapsulation or insulation in the attic?
No, we basically set out, hey, here's what you're going to do, right? I mean, we have services that we offer because we don't want to offer something that we're not good at because when we're growing, I mean, the only way you're going to grow is if your service is good. And we really talk about that. For all of our salespeople, we say, hey, you're selling the service that they're providing. And so you got to make sure that service is really, really good. And so we are constantly monitoring, your skip and cancels, making sure you're taking care of your customers in the best possible way that you can, because we're in this thing for the long term. It's not something we're just in it to say, all right, we want to do well this month, quarter, year. We've done very well, obviously, over 57 years the company has. But as Emily says, we're just getting started. And so we expect this to go for a lot longer.
Well, also to your question, we also have something called home service centers, okay? And we have an entire region that's made up of, is it 10? 10 home service centers. Emily, what does that mean? Okay, they're going to do all they're going to do is wildlife exclusion work, handyman work, insulation work, sometimes some gutters. I remember years ago, people were like, that's a huge opportunity. And we're like, God, I did 4 or something. But anyway, but it's mostly that business. And what happened is, and Kevin, maybe you can remember the year, it's like 2006, maybe 2004. We had offices all over Metro Atlanta who were selling wildlife exclusion work. And to be quite honest, it was, they were putting up some big sales. We weren't good at it. I mean, we just weren't good at it at all. And I mean, you want to tick your current clients off, do a big, expensive wildlife exclusion job and not be good at it.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, and Kevin basically led this effort. We looked at, let's create, because this was an issue in Metro Atlanta, let's create one office, and this is all they do. It's all they do 24/7, right? And over the years, we've grown that. And in Metro Atlanta now, we've got about 4 or 5 home service centers. So our what we call core service centers, which are most of our service centers, are not able to sell those services. Now in other areas down in Florida, we're about to open a new one on the Gulf Coast of Alabama. We're adding home service centers there as well. But I mean, the big takeaway there was, hey, great, but we're not good at this.
Yeah.
And it was taking folks' eye off the ball and focusing on, again, what we're best at, which is termite, pest control, mosquito, and selling recurring business,
I hate to ask this.
Okay. I don't know what to think.
I know. I don't, whether you choose to or not, I see you as the face of women in pest control. I don't know if you like being that, if that's something you shy away from. What's your take on that? And do you find yourself in this representative role of women, or like, hey, this mouthpiece of, hey, women, come join me in this wonderful industry?
First of all, I've gotten this question a lot over the years, as I know other women in the industry have. You were talking about other women CEOs. I automatically think of Stacy Plunkett and what they've done at Plunkett's and Varmint Guard.
Yep.
I think they have got something awesome going on, and they are building a heck of a company. But people always come at me, whether it's inside the industry or outside the industry. We want to talk to you as a woman, and I'm like, my experience, it doesn't mean other people haven't had this experience, but my personal experience was never a gender-based thing. Okay. It was an experience-based thing for me, as well as an age-based thing. I came out of college, thought I knew everything, didn't know boo. And over the years you gain more experience, and you start to evolve. It hasn't been because I'm a woman. Well, Emily, you're in a family business and you are the chairman of the board's daughter. Well, that helps, Would I be the CEO at another company? I don't know. But I love working for my dad in our family business. There are more men in the industry than women. I would love to see more women in the industry. I would also like to see more women in sales roles and operations management roles. I mean, I'm thinking of out in Tucson, 2 of the top salespeople in the company. I mean, they're probably in the top 5 are women. Dude, they crush it. They are unreal. And I think it's a matter of, you never want to say, oh, well, I'm going to hire this person, just because they're a woman, right? Or like, I don't know. That's a struggle for me, right? But I think putting an emphasis on it and an emphasis on training and recruiting for our folks. I mean, I can't say this. I was thinking of our Rookie of the Year. When is this going to be shown?
a month from now.
It'd be
Great.
August 26th at the earliest.
Good. It's after next week. So
Okay.
we're good.
Yeah.
So this is so awesome. I'm so pumped about it. Next Monday is our big fiscal year kickoff meeting. We give a lot of awards at the end of the first day. And one of the awards is Rookie of the Year. And it's being given to a woman in our organization. And she's one of our only women operations managers.
Okay.
And Tim and I look at each other quite often and say, why is that? Like, why is that? And we go to other women in our business and say, hey, we think you'd be great in this role. And some have said pound sand, I love what I'm doing. And others have said, I'd be interested in that, just not right this very minute, but I would be very interested in going through the Management Training Academy. But I think you have to put attention on it. I think you have to put focus on it and have the whole team moving in the right direction. I mean, I would, I like the easy way. So I'd like to just like snap my fingers and have it happen.
And we have a lot of women in leadership roles within the company. It's just that one in particular seems a little more difficult, a little more challenging. So it's one we're constantly having to think about. And part of the training academy and the manager training academy is part of that as well.
So this woman who's the Rookie of the Year, that just means it's her first year with Arrow.
No, first year in
management. Okay, first year in management.
Manager, operations manager.
And it's not because she's a woman.
No.
I mean, it's very... It's
a coveted award.
Exciting.
It's
it is when someone's new in operations management, they go into it going, I'm going to be Rookie of the Year. I mean, that's the good ones do, and man, she absolutely crushed it.
Phenomenal.
She has no fear about getting in the field, which I think is very, very important. And I just can't wait. I can't wait to say her name and get her up on stage. I think it's just going to be so awesome.
You can tell it. You can say it now because this is
Yeah.
Congratulations to
Jean Carmen.
All right.
Rock star, baby. Woo!
That's congratulations, Jane. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's coming up this month.
And she's in a week, next Monday. She's been in other leadership roles on the corporate support side of our business. We have a lot of women in corporate support roles. There are 3 of us on our executive committee. I would like to see more and more women in pest control.
From a distance, because we just met today,
Yeah.
right? And so from a distance and being in just 13 years in the industry, as far back as I can remember, you're just the female face of pest control to me, right? Like in a leadership capacity. And I'm just like, there need to be more Emilys.
Well, I appreciate your kind words, but I want to tell you, when I first got into the industry, and so it would have been fall of 1998, the Pest World, the national convention, was in Nashville at the Gaylord. That's a big hotel.
Yeah.
I lost a couple of times there. But anyway, I remember, I went in and, everything was paper then. So, I'm looking at the agenda and I saw the next day there was women in pest management type meeting. This is before it was something that was part of NPMA. So it's kind of a separate thing. And I'm like, 6:30 in the morning? Are you kidding me? I mean, I get it. It's Pest World. We start early. There's a lot to cram in, but okay. So I'm like, well, I want to meet other women in the business, and I go to this meeting. There are a ton of other women there. And who's at the head of the table, bringing the house down with stories and being such an amazing hostess? Judy Dold, who, if y'all haven't talked to her, I'm going to tell you something. The woman breathes, and it's like wiseness coming out of her. I mean,
from Chicago Metro.
Yeah.
Dole?
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
She's,
Mother.
this is his mother.
Yeah.
Okay. This is his mother. And from that day forward, she kind of took me under her wing. And we stayed in touch, and we'd get together for coffee at various industry meetings. She's actually the one who, so what I'm getting at here is mentorship and women mentoring other women, the importance of that. And I think men mentoring women, you can have women mentoring men as well. But Judy is actually, I credit Judy with my marriage. Okay. So at an NPMA Pest World, it's down in Orlando, Kissimmee. Okay. And we have breakfast and she's like, what's going on? Oh, work is great, blah, blah, blah. She's like, Emily, those P&Ls aren't going to keep you warm, girl. They're just not. I said, well, I actually met this guy. He's 18 years older than me and he lives in Wyoming. So what, like, where's that going to go? You know? So he's called me a couple of times. I haven't called him back. And she's very proper. She said, you never don't call someone back. You go upstairs and call him back. I said, well, it's like 5 a.m. there, but I did call him back and we ended up getting married. And she's like, you never know. You're not signing up to marry him. You know, I mean, and so she's been somebody who's very important in my life, both professionally and personally.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
I know, it's random.
We're gonna have to invite her to your anniversary dinner.
She's
Tag
great.
along. There you go.
She and her husband, Bob Dold Sr.
They are great
We call them
people.
Chief.
They're fantastic.
They're a phenomenal family. They're special people.
You know, this whole women in management position, though, like I think about it, if you look at pest management, when you put an ad out for a technician, I mean, if you get 100 applicants, which I know in July of 2021, that's not happening. But I mean, what percentage is male versus female?
It's overwhelming.
It's over,
Yeah.
right.
Is male.
So it just seems like it just trickles in a lot of males. In our business, I use gender discrimination in my business. I discriminate against men. So 80% of our business is female, and I tend to prefer to hire females for finance positions. And I particularly like to hire females who have children, because I find these females that are very well educated, who've taken a step back from their career to actually focus on their family, which I like. And so we've hired women that have significant gaps in their professional career to deal with children, because quite frankly, I like it. But I do discriminate against men. Now, I can legally do that, right? I can't do it against women, but I can against men. But I would do it however I wanted to do it. But I actually find that women are better for finance positions. And it's a male-dominated industry, quite frankly.
Well, you know, talking about the things you mentioned earlier, you know, is it because it's a, you know, dirty industry that, you know, I'm going to tell you something, all those things you named, women can do just as well as men, and in many cases better than men. They really can if they are given the opportunity, but you've got to have people, you know, who you either seek out or who apply. Now, like you said, July 2021, it's just really hard getting people in general, right?
I once sat down and had this discussion about gender. I'm not going to mention the name of the company, but we talked about, in the pest control industry, about females versus males applying for frontline positions. And they actually had done a study, and I bet this happens at Aero. You've got, Patrick and I are technicians, right? And we probably have an incentive. We like our place of employment. We've got a good buddy, Jim. Hey, Jim, come work with us at Aero. There's a cool position. They're opening up a new office. And when you have a, you know, significant amount of men, they are more likely to refer open positions to other men.
That's a great point.
So there's like a lot of these things that go on behind the scenes. It's like, where do the people come from? They come from the boys club. That's not anti-women necessarily. It's just,
that's part of why because we have a program where we incentivize folks to you know, refer friends and family to the company. And we always say, you know, we give examples like, you know, friends, family, brothers and sisters, you know. But I think that's a very good point. I hadn't actually thought about it that way, but I think you're right about that.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, you know, if you just put instead of just focusing on gender, I'd like to see more diversity in the industry. I'm a big believer. I think most people are. There are business cases that have been made that the more diversity in a business, the better the business does. You get diversity of background, of experience, various ways of looking at the world. And I'd love to see more diversity in general in the industry. And I know a lot of companies are working really hard at it right now. I mean, but I'd like to see that. I really would.
Do you think that Aero in general kind of reflects the background of its customer base, right? You guys are pulling from local communities, right? In a lot of ways, would you say that's pretty accurate?
Well, I think in some cases, yeah. But I think, also we know that if you put forth the effort, you can attract people of all different types of people. And I think that's important. And I think it's important for people to have a vision of what can happen. And what I mean by that is to say, hey, do you have leaders in your organization that look like me? Mm-hmm. And I think that's important. And we've seen that within Aero as well, too. If you have leaders that show diversity, then you tend to attract more diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Emily, do you find yourself getting calls from frontline technicians or salespeople that just like they somehow way down the chain and they report to you, but they're just kind of jumping like way up to you because you're another woman in the industry? And
you'll get stuff every once in a while. I mean, I'm on social media, and sometimes I'll get people reaching out that way, or they'll just email me. Sometimes it's anything from, hey, because like I said, we have an open door policy. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, I want to grow in this organization, in my role. What would be the next step, right? So I always write back or call them back and kind of point them in the direction which, their manager or their VP would point them as well. And we go through Aero University, let's set up a conversation to see what this looks like for you, what your interests are, what your goals are the next couple of years. Or you can have somebody who's had a bad experience, or at least they perceive it as a bad experience. And I, refer those to HR.
Well, what's really great is Emily will just reach out to maybe, a home evaluator or a service professional that got some type of recognition or award or something like that, and she'll call them out of the blue, like on their cell phone.
I love to do that.
And it's just fantastic.
I love it.
I mean, again, that kind of goes back to the whole culture thing, right? I mean, here's the CEO of this $300 million company, and she's reaching out to one of our 2,700 plus team members, right?
And because Tim and Kevin and the rest of our senior leadership team is so freaking awesome, and I mean that, they are unreal, the best out there, I can do things like that. I mean, I remember in the middle of COVID, I got an email from the regional vice president in Tennessee, and he was talking about a awesome customer experience given by one of our service professionals. I think he was in Franklin, Tennessee. It's a Friday afternoon. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to call this guy right now. Mm-hmm. And we have a way to get everybody's cell phone number. And I reached out to him. It was just after 5. And he goes, gosh, how did you know about that? And
I know everything.
I said, your regional vice president was bragging on you.
Yeah.
I mean, this is awesome, because I know you don't just do this once in a while. I know this is how you go about your business. And I just want to thank you. I mean, I get more out of it than anyone. I mean, I just love it. Yeah. I really enjoy it.
She also sends baby clothes to everybody that has a new baby.
Well, onesie.
Okay, little onesie that has Aero logo on it and all this. So then in turn, she gets all these photos back with the baby, in the onesie, and it's just turned into this.
Well, really, I mean, cool years ago, it was like, and I'm not a creative person, I'm not a marketing type person. I went online, I'm like, I'm just going to order some, just slap the Aero logo on. And, when I'd hear about somebody having a baby, I'd send it to them. Yeah. I'd send them a note. And over time, it became this like, hey, I didn't get my Aero onesie.
Oh,
and I'm like,
there you go.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we got to have some process to this. So our HR team works with myself and one of my folks, Wanda, who I've known my entire life. And we make sure that everybody gets one that we know has had a baby. And we put the Arrow Exterminators family of brands. And y'all, it is just awesome. The pictures we get back, and it's just fun. I mean, it's a awesome opportunity to be a part of someone's life, you know?
In the same line, making the phone calls to the employees, right? Kind of out of the blue, the surprise. You're given the recognition. I love it. Do you find yourself? You both show up when you're doing an acquisition, right? With Kevin showing up and meeting and greeting. Do you find yourself showing up at a branch, announced or unannounced, and just like, hey, today I'm riding with Paul, or?
Yeah, we've done that. We've gone out, and most of the time it is a coordinated effort.
Yeah.
Instead of just showing up out of the blue. But we've done that. We actually went to every one of our service centers back when we had, I think, 98 service centers or somewhere in that regard.
It took a while.
Back in the old days.
Like a tour.
Yeah, which was a couple of years ago. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. And we actually we called them town hall meetings, and we went around to each one. And of course, in town hall meeting, we had a little bit of information to give, but then of course you take questions and all of that.
It was great.
It was great. It was wonderful because for us, obviously, it helps us stay connected as well too. What's really happening, and you had a chance to hear it straight from our folks that are out there every day making it happen with our customers.
And you pick up on themes, and then we get back in the car, the plane, and we're like, we've heard this like 4 or 5 times. Let's look into it. And it led us to make changes, big, medium, small. And
Definitely got to get new toilet paper. Learn about it.
I mean, they want different toilet paper. We'll get different toilet paper, But we actually were just talking a few days ago about, and I mean, as soon as we can, but probably starting in the new calendar year, getting out and over the next few years doing our town halls again. You learn so much. I mean, you really do. And so often it can even just be from, what people bring up in front of the group, or just like talking to somebody over lunch or whatever. It's, that was invaluable.
It was. It was tough, but it was worth it.
Man, we were dragging some weeks.
Do you hear any extremely candid advice from anybody?
Well, yeah. I mean, you will. Sometimes you have some people that are pretty passionate about it, right?
Very passionate.
Yeah, you have some passionate folks. And you know what? That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, and if we don't know, we can't do anything about it.
Absolutely.
So it's good to hear it.
What was it?
What wasn't it?
Yeah.
Remember the guy in Duluth? And I mean, he had so many things. I couldn't even keep up with it. And I'm like, Tim, it was when, after Tim spoke, and Tim did a fantastic job of, hey, let's kind of bring down the temperature here. Sounds like there's several things you have concerns about them. Let's kind of address them one by one. And he went through a few of them and then said, let's go through the other stuff kind of offline. And we looked into a couple of situations in the service center and kind of went from there. But, it can be awkward.
Yeah.
But things can be awkward and it still be okay. I mean, some of the other folks in the service center were like, just like looking down, and
what I love about it is how many CEOs are going to go do that. Right. And I think that's what our team loves about it too, is that, hey, Emily is going to come and she's going to listen and she's going to hear what I have to say, and she cares. And I think that's huge.
So I was thinking in terms of competition, which I like down on the local level. Is there competition like as big as y'all are? Are you looking at the other top 10, like the PCT 100 comes out? Like, where do we stack this year? Like you're right here. I mean, Rollins and you and Rollins here in the same backyard.
So years and years and years ago, we used to look at it. I mean, I remember the year, maybe like 2003, 2004 ish. I was like, I was checking the website, and this is like when, internet still wasn't that good. And I was like, well, maybe it'll come out on the website before the magazine comes out, and we hit the top 10. And that was a huge deal. It was like 300 million. It was a milestone. It's a place to spike the ball, right? And, honestly, it made my dad so happy, which is a gift to me to see that. And for many years, part of our vision was becoming the largest privately held pest control company in the country. And how many years ago was it that we changed our vision?
4 or 5 years, yeah.
4 or 5 years ago. For several years, it's not what got me up every morning. Because it's like, we're big.
Yeah.
We're going to get bigger. I don't think that's an issue.
Yep.
But the challenge is to be this size, continue to grow, and still do it in the manner in which we want to operate in. That's the hard part. That is truly the most difficult part. So I'll never forget when we changed it up. My dad, bless his heart, he's like, I explained kind of where I was coming from. And he's like, well, we still want to grow. And I'm like, of course we want to grow. We always grow. We're really good at growing. And he's like, man, I don't know about using the words rock stars in a vision. And I'm like, some people would not do it. Yeah. But that's just kind of part of the lingo in the company. And he was very, very supportive. And so nowadays, because in terms of privately held companies, the only company that's bigger than us is Massey. And Massey's a great competitor. They're a great company. And they're only going to get bigger and bigger too. Okay. And I'm sure for them as well, the hard part is not getting bigger. It's doing it in a particular manner.
To try to stay small.
Exactly.
Right?
That's the hard part. That is the hard. It would be much easier if that part didn't exist and we didn't care so damn much about it. But for myself, I love to look at the list because I like to see newcomers on the list and I like to see how people are doing. But we're a big company as far as this industry goes, and we're going to continue to grow. The challenge is not the size. The challenge is the how of it. It's not just the what, it's the how.
The what and the how.
And changing that vision, right, years ago, you're like, hey, this doesn't motivate me anymore. Like, so now, what is it that gets you up? What is it that motivates you on a daily basis or gets you most excited?
It's not just the what, it's the how. It's not just the numbers, the performance, it's the how of it. Our commitment to doing things with a clear conscience, transparency, owning the moment, providing an awesome experience in every interaction, whether that be externally or internally. Basically our vision states, and now I'm going to screw it up as we're sitting here, like, how do you not know your vision? But basically it goes a little like this. We are tenaciously persistent in protecting our family culture and providing an awesome experience in every single interaction. By hiring, training, and retaining rock stars, this Aero family will grow opportunities for generations to come, and we will do it all with a clear conscience. That's what gets me rolling.
She nailed it.
I think
We
she
got it.
You nailed it.
We got it.
That's what gets me rolling. You aspire to that every day. You're never going to have a dull day. I can tell you that because you never hit it, right? It's dynamic.
And that clear conscience piece is obviously very important for us. And one thing we say a lot is do the right thing the right way every time. And that's what we talk to all of our team about. And that's what we want to do. And we believe it. We even developed a little coin this year to give to people that we catch doing the right thing the right way every time. So a way to reinforce that. Yeah. So it means something, right? And it's important.
That was a Tim idea. Fantastic idea. These challenge coins, right? And we've had people at the company for decades. Like one of our top salespeople ever at Arrow Exterminators, he took a picture of it and put it on social media. And he said, of every award I've ever been given at this company, and he's been given like every award, okay? And every incentive trip you could ever imagine, he's gone all over the place. He said, this means the most. And I thought, that is pretty damn awesome. And we're going to keep doing that. And we're like, rinse, repeat, let's go.
I'm going to put a note in the suggestion box that you should make those coins out of gold. Pure gold.
There you go.
Again, both high maintenance, pure gold, Tesla. Yeah. I don't know. I don't feel like you're a fit. It's a little high maintenance.
Well, I'll run the route in the Tesla.
You can paint it.
I'm good.
You're going to love it.
Exactly.
Painted gold.
Or maybe a semi-precious.
You're going to love it.
Like a palladium, perhaps.
Palladium.
I guess in closing, what do we have in store for you guys here in the near future? What sort of initiatives you working on over at Aero?
Well, right off the bat, we're kicking off our new fiscal year next Monday. Pretty pumped about that. I told you, I shared that we're projecting to add 15 new offices this year, 10 from spinoffs, 5 from acquisitions. So it's exciting to be able to create those opportunities for folks and create new jobs in the local communities we serve. We have a lot more going on. I'm kind of tired just thinking about it.
Yeah. So, our theme, we always do a theme for the upcoming year. And so we're getting ready to kick that off. And our theme for this year is called The Comeback is the Give Back. And for us, there was a lot of discussion around coming back after such an event like COVID, right? Where it just changed everything. You had to turn on a dime. Everything was different. The way you worked, the way you interacted, everything was totally different. But our business was able to continue, and our business not only survived, but thrived. Okay. Right. So you say, well, really, where's the comeback in that? Well, the comeback is just for us, just more bringing people back together, right? And being able to get back together and interact with each other and continue to build that culture and build that morale, right? That's really important to us. And so this year we're going to put a big focus too then on giving back. And Aero is a company that has always given back in their 57-year history. But we're going to take that up even another level this year, and that's something we'll be talking with our teams about. We're going to get all of our local 144 service centers involved to be able to give back to those local communities as well, because there was a term that was used this year during COVID that was called essential. Mm-hmm. And pest control companies were essential. And our team, all of our team was essential. And so they were able to continue to work, and all of us were continue to provide for our families. And so we feel like we want to give back from that. So we want to give back to those communities that supported us through this, that we were able to support during this time. And so the comeback is the give back for Aero. And so that's kind of our focus here coming up for this year.
And what kind of things will you be doing?
Well, Aero's always been a company that's given back to local communities, but one of the big initiatives will be this year, we'll be giving money out to all 144 service centers for them to find local charities and things that they want to support there.
I love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well done.
So we're taking it from just, what we do in Atlanta and everywhere, and bringing it down to where they have a say in, these are the ones. They're going to kind of lead that. We're going to provide seed money, I call it, right?
Yep.
We're going to ask them to help raise funds to help match it, how they do that in their local area, and then to support those local charities in their area.
It's pretty exciting. And because this is going to come out like after our fiscal year kickoff meeting, do you want to talk about the children's?
Yeah. So for over 20 plus years, Aero's been a supporter of Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, based right here. And of course, what they just went through this past year was extremely difficult. And so next Monday, we're going to announce we're going to provide $50,000 to provide a lunch for all of their team as well. And we're just, another way we feel like, hey, we want to give back. Yeah. Because we feel very fortunate that we were able to continue to work and provide. And we feel like we want to give back to our communities.
Oh, that's awesome. Super impressive. And I'm glad to hear that.
It's exciting.
This large $300 million company, 144 branches, but it really comes down to that local, that divide and conquer. Mm-hmm. Super impressive. Y'all's reputation precedes you. I'm so glad y'all made time to visit with us today. I walk away just thinking that opportunity by design. I love it, and just love to see what y'all are doing.
Absolutely. I mean, between what you guys do for your local communities and what you do for the industry, with the $1 Million Club that you guys host, you guys have always been extremely generous to us and our firm for years. And I've seen you do that over and over. You guys individually, Kevin, Burns, Joe. So thank you for what you do for the industry. And thank
We're
you
in
for
a great industry, aren't we?
We are.
I mean, it's a fantastic industry, even though sometimes it can't kill flies.
I mean, we're doing I mean, we got to do some editing.
We do not do the
like
pest
karma,
control
right?
here. But seriously, thank you guys for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
We love talking about the business.
We love having you guys.
Tearing it up.
Well, thank you for joining us. You too.
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all very much.
Appreciate the opportunity, guys.
he'll tell you like it is. Like, he won't hold back. He'll tell you exactly what he thinks about the acquirer, the good and the bad. We were just blown away with just his knowledge of the pest control industry, the M&A industry, and just business in general. Is Paul in here? He's gonna like, he's probably
He can't fit through the door anymore.
I was gonna say, yeah. My brother and I got involved in this business because our dad was in the industry. We were doing about $200,000 in revenue at the time. Fast forward, 12, 13 years later, when we met Paul, we were doing a little over $7.5 million. Our goal was to exit the business because we wanted to be able to pursue other business interests, to take some of the risk off the table. And that's where Paul came in. He was able to, take that asset that we had, built up over those 10, 12 years, growing really, really fast to monetize that for us. Brian and I, our conversations offline when we weren't talking to Paul, were talking about, Paul's business acumen, the industry acumen he had, like just his connections in the industry. When we sat down with an acquirer and they, maybe presented an offer to us, and he knew all the other acquirers. He knew what the other deals would be. Some of the deals he told us just to wait on because he knew that he could get better offers. And just having a 30-minute conversation with Paul, I think anybody would be pretty shocked about how well connected he is in the industry. We actually dabbled into the M&A market 5 years prior to selling. Before we knew Paul, we talked to a broker at the time, really got some bad advice. We were kind of pigeonholed into like selling, and something just didn't feel right. It really felt like they were working more for the acquirer than he was for us. We kind of got a bad taste in our mouth about M&A, and really, until we reached out, just had a conversation, we really didn't have any intentions of selling at the time, and just started a dialogue. And this lasted, more than a year. By the time we sold, we realized that we did make the right decision. I mean, the questions he asked us along the way, the guidance that he gave us, he was more probably a counselor to us than anything else. I mean, we were both still young and naive, and he was really able to kind of hold our hand through the process.
I'm wondering what an alternate ending would have looked like if you and Brian didn't have Paul and you realized we've got to sell and we're going to figure this out on our own, what it would look like today.
I definitely think back about 5 years prior to meeting Paul. If we had sold to that acquirer and with that broker, part of the deal was we were going to have to work full time for that acquirer. We weren't going to be able to run our home inspection business, so all that would have been dissolved. We grew the business in those 5 years 500%. Then the M&A market also went up. For us, looking back, that was some of the best decisions we ever made, was saying no back then. We just got that kind of feeling in our gut that we weren't working with the right broker or the acquirer. I don't think we would have ever net the kind of money that we netted because we had that sour taste in our mouth from that experience 5 years prior. We kind of actually had that conversation like, hey, we can just do this ourselves. We know who the big acquirers are. Thank God we didn't. Luckily for us, we held out for a few years. Luckily for us, we met Paul, and luckily for us, the M&A market was great. Found a great acquirer, and everything worked out great for us.